What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video today, and in this video we are doing the 84th installment of Retro Reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing my Aeroclassics 1:400 scale Republic Airlines Douglas DC-9-30. We are back to the Airliners International 2025 acquisitions, and we return to the Squatchy's diecast hangar table for the second straight week. This is one of several models I picked up at the most recent convention in Atlanta, and as always, they are a fantastic retailer if you're looking for old gems for your collection, and also for some new releases as well, since they do typically stock like Gemini, NG, not so much NG really anymore, based on what I understand, and Aeroclassics. So they're a really good resource for some of those new releases, and then again, if you're just looking for a lot of old stock, then they are definitely a place I would personally recommend. Not sponsored, by the way, but they are a fantastic retailer, so that's why I like to promote them so much. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at the box. Just a standard DC-9 box. There's no item number on it or anything, unfortunately, so don't have that information anywhere, but if somebody knows, please leave a comment, because I know MadBee is also lacking that information, so that's why I have an NA over the item number, which, typically would have something in there, but I don't have that. So, I've gotten so many Aeroclassics DC-9s, this box is a familiar sight if you watch my channel enough. The only major difference is the price tag, $70. Definitely worth the price there, and then on the back, they did add a little Republic sticker, just so they know which one is which, because obviously, in 2007, Aeroclassics did not go to the lengths that they do today to label the boxes with a sticker, or perhaps this may have had a sticker and it got taken off at some point, but otherwise it is just a standard DC-9 box for Aeroclassics. Not a bad box by any means, but definitely helps to have a label of some kind so that you know which one is which. But happy that Squatchy did that for me with their little stickers. Always gotta love that Eastern DC-9 that they have on the back. They obviously removed the airline titles and logos for licensing and copyright reasons, which, Aeroclassics, they really just do not give a hoot about licensing. They have made that firm stance and will make anything that they want, and they don't really go out of their way to get licensing. And as I've mentioned before, that's not really a big deal for some. People just want the best product, and obviously Aeroclassics doesn't really meet the standards of most collectors, but hey, they at least make some really darn good models, at least in terms of the subject matter, and sometimes are really the only option for it. And in this case, Aeroclassics typically remains as the primary manufacturer for any DC-9s that you really want, mainly for the -30 and 50 series, and even the 40 in between all that, because they don't have a short 9 mold anymore. They had the Gen 1 mold from the early 2000s, which I have an Ozark example of on that casting. And I know 3D Design Deck, they had announced a 1:400 DC-910 mold, but they haven't used it yet, so I'm guessing they may still be working on developing that casting and selecting a couple subjects to do. But there are certainly some great offerings with the short 9. But in this case, for this Republic DC-9-30, this is a very lovely model, and once again, I add another Herman model to my collection, which is always a good thing for me to add. So it'll be kind of my tradition now every year is to get at least one Herman model at every convention that I go to. The only one I haven't gotten one out of was probably the MSP one-day show in 2023, because I did not get a Herman model out of that. I did get the North Central hat, so that technically counts. Start off at the front, we've got the nose cone. There's a little fleet code printed underneath the blue cheat line. Cockpit windows, nose gear, and the nose gear door. We've got a little L1 boarding door right there. And then the Republic titles that break up that cheat line on the top there a bit. Nice double striped cheat line that surrounds the passenger windows. It's a very nice livery that Republic had during their first few years of operation. There's the overwing exits, and then you'll note the registration is November 922 Romeo Whiskey. We'll take a look at the real-life aircraft's history in just a moment. A little American flag printed on the Pratt & Whitney engines, and then, of course, our good old friend Herman rests on the tail. They kept the logo from North Central since a lot of their executive leadership was from North Central. Not a whole lot of leaders came over from Southern when they merged. And on the right side, not too much different here. You just have the little R1 door on that side, and then a couple luggage doors underneath. But Man, this model turned out really good for 2007. Really happy that they did this. And they did it in the same release as several of the other North Central models that I have in my collection, which, again, I'm fortunate to have all of the North Central models that currently exist in 1:400 scale. We'll see if that changes anytime soon, because as I talk about in Herman's Odyssey, which you should go check out if you haven't yet, I do talk about a couple subjects that I'd love to see made in 1:400 scale. Top of the aircraft here, not too much to report on with that beacon light, but you do have the overwing exit markings and the flaps, slats, speed brakes, all the fun details that you can expect on the wings. And then underneath, there is a stand hole, but no branding, which I always love, and all that fun stuff. And I love the little detail there with the, almost looks like a fake engine pylon on there, which I think, yeah, the DC-9s did have IRL. Not sure what it's for, but I'm guessing for possibly aerodynamics, something like that. If anyone knows what that piece is, please leave a comment, because I have been curious about that for a while as to what that does, if it has any sort of, you know, functional purpose, or if it's just there for looks. So there it is, Republic DC-9. As I said, very lovely model from Aeroclassics, and now we'll take a few minutes to look at the real-life aircraft's history. Don't have an exact first flight date, but it had to have been sometime in 1968, since this aircraft was delivered to Eastern originally in March of 1968 and was given the registration November 89er 46 Echo. So this is one of several DC-9s that Republic had that were of former Eastern aircraft. I think they had at least a handful for sure. And there were some DC-9s that went all the way to Northwest that did carry like the old Eastern registrations, which I thought was fascinating, but this one did not. So after being with Eastern for a little over a decade, it went to Hughes Air West in October 1978, re-registered to November 9er Romeo Whiskey. So that Romeo Whiskey registration suffix that typically indicates a former Hughes Air West aircraft. So wore that nice bright yellow banana livery that Hughes Air West was known for. And then it went to Republic in October 1980 when they bought out Hughes Air West. So Republic, as you know, it was a merger between North Central and Southern that formed Republic. Then they bought out Hughes Air West the next year to gain a West Coast presence, but because of financial issues, they didn't keep that West Coast presence around for very long, so they had to dismantle much of the network that Hughes Air West once had. She then went to Northwest 6 years later in 1986 when they bought out Republic. And she stayed with Northwest for another 21 years, so this aircraft soldiered on for a very long time, a little under 40 years before she was withdrawn from use in 2007. Her last owner was reported to be G.A. Telesis, who bought her out for parts in November of 2007, and after that the aircraft was scrapped. And that'll do it for this episode of Retro Reviews. With that being said, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.